Kicking us off at number 5, we've got SCP-2599. Most reality benders are dangerous because they can change the world according to their will. If they have something sinister in mind, they'll put it into action and there isn't much anyone can do to stop them, or even realize what's going on. But with 2599, anyone can speak changes into existence. Like, as long as you have access to the 14-year-old girl now known as SCP-2599, you can potentially get anything you want. Well, at least sort of. SCP-2599 has an anomalous effect that breaks down into 2 components. First, they can't disobey any direct commands. This has no limits, even ending up with 2599 scoring a 0 on the psychic resistance scale. Hypothetically, you could tell 2599 to fly and they would. Or ask them to alter the composition or color of a piece of paper and it would happen. However, part 2 adds an interesting caveat to this anomalous quality. 2599, while always obeying direct commands, will never be able to fully carry out the tasks. They'll mostly clean a room or get most of the way through a book or even mostly kill a person. That's right, if you ask 2599 to kill someone, they'll stab them but somehow manage to only hit necrotic tissue left over from a prior heart attack, so they won't actually die. What's been described so far is mostly within the realm of reason though. If you were to order 2599 to do something that changes aspects of reality or breaks the laws of physics, they would mostly be able to do that. Of course, it wouldn't be to the exact specifications you gave, but it would be close. Careful giving orders though, paradoxes can be really finicky. One time a researcher gave 2599 the command, "Do not lie," when repeating these sentences. The following sentence is true, the previous sentence is false. This caused 2599 to totally freeze up, followed by micro changes being noticeable in reality. I don't think even 2599 comes close to understanding the scope of their reality altering abilities. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-343. Oh god, I almost forgot about this guy. See what I did there? Man, maybe I did spend too much time at home. Ignoring what I just said, let's discuss the reality altering capabilities of SCP-343. Right now, he's just chilling in a Foundation holding cell. Foundation staff saw him essentially teleport from the street to a rooftop in Prague and detained him shortly after. However, there's really nothing they can do to keep him there. 343 comes and goes as he pleases. Most of the time, he'll chill out with the guards and talk for hours. He's managed to lavishly outfit his cell and is known to head out for periods of time to snag a burger or 2. Mostly, he's harmless, or I suppose as far as we know. It's hard to tell when he literally claims to be God and can manipulate reality. Actually, those powers are a little worrisome, especially when you read a little deeper. There used to be a Foundation doctor that was a little curious about the actual implications of such a reality bender. He did a little digging and got disappeared. Like, there are little bits and pieces of the doctor and his research, but no official records of any such person in any Foundation database. Even though it seems that 343 increases morale and is able to speak intelligently on literally any topic, he might be worried that someone could find out some incriminating information. If that happens consistently, 343 might even decide to blow this popsicle stand for good, altering reality so that the Foundation itself never existed. Or maybe, just maybe, he'll keep eating burgers and shooting the breeze with security guards. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-2241. Now, if you want someone totally volatile, look no further than 2241. Children are volatile for sure, especially when they have reality-changing powers and don't totally understand how to use them or the implications of such abilities. There's a lot of growing to be done, and if the proper care isn't taken, a young reality bender could end up causing some serious issues. Keeping an eye on 2241 should be of the utmost importance then. This is a 7-year-old boy named Cameron. When he was discovered by the Foundation, he had some telekinetic abilities and appeared to have latent reality bending abilities. In order to keep him largely in line, Foundation folks decided to start putting him through a training regimen. Of course, they got to do some research too. He's convinced that he's a superhero being trained for heroic duties. At first, he avoided violence, opting to turn knives into chocolate and teleporting people out of harm's way, but this proved to be undesirable for testing purposes, so the Foundation cranked up the difficulty and life or death stakes during these operations. Whether this will negatively affect his mental state is yet to be seen. It definitely sped up the awakening of new abilities though. This little lad is zipping through the air, seeing seconds into the future and transforming matter without needing to see it. He considers it all leveling up so he can help people, but the researchers within the Foundation may have more sinister and militaristic plans for the young dude. Eventually he'll realize the scope of his own powers and will have to make a choice about what he's doing with them. Let's hope he makes the right one. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-3999. Man, if there is one reality altering skip that seems to come up again and again, it's gotta be 3999. Poor researcher Talaran, stuck in an insane jail of his own invention. This SCP threatens to end the world as it poses a ZK class end of reality scenario. Yep, Ending reality counts as altering it. For whatever reason, this world-ending anomaly took great interest in a Foundation researcher known as Talaran. To prevent the destructive effects of this thing from reaching the world at large, the Foundation hid Talaran away, far away from human populations. Although even this is debatable, as the document outlining special containment procedures seems to have been heavily edited and possibly even altered along with rapidly shifting reality. So the best way to get an idea of what the hell is going on here is to read the document in full. In doing so, you'll see just how unbelievable and hard to understand things can get. It's implied that most of the document is written by Talaran, as they experienced unending torment. 3999 constantly alters reality in the area around them, forcing them to live through truly horrible and painful scenarios over and over again. Although this may be awful for Talaran, the rest of the world is lucky that the effects don't spill over. If 3999 made it to the world at large, we may all have to face down our families dying in front of us, weird Harry Potter references, scented candle confusion, children laughing at us, and of course, ceaseless agony. Thanks, Talaran. And coming in at number 1, we've got SCP-1450. And honestly, this reality bender can keep doing what he's doing. If what he says is correct, we definitely do not want to meet his wife under any circumstances, so let him deal with that and leave him well alone. 2343 is a humanoid that looks to be in his late 50s. The Foundation picked up on his presence after a long night of drinking. Yep, he got too drunk and let his abilities slip. If that's not relatable, I don't know what is. So the Foundation picked him up and brought him in for questioning. During this time, he produced some cigarettes and a lighter, neither of which could be found afterwards. Or maybe it was a guitar. Who knows? Either way, he seems to be able to voluntarily restructure reality, and he's been pretty responsible with it. Mostly, he just grabs food or cigarettes for his own consumption, but the night he was found, he was assaulted by his wife, and then the Foundation took him in. This is particularly bad news because it appears that his wife has quite the temper and can also alter reality. So when she finds out where her husband's being kept, she probably won't take it in stride. No, she'll probably turn everyone inside out and then beat up her husband again. No wonder the poor guy took to drinking. He's pretty worried about this happening too. In fact, he's added his own addendums to the special containment procedures, calling out the Foundation and their reality anchors, attempting to convince him to work with him to find his wife before things get out of hand. I'd say help the man. Coming in at number 5, we've got Salvation High School. Thankfully, most people who are not currently attending high school have very few reasons to visit a high school. Acceptable excuses are being a dance chaperone, picking up your child, attending a holiday concert, and delivering cafeteria food. If you can't claim to be performing one of those tasks, you should probably just stay away. And when it comes to Salvation High School, I'd say stay away even if you are responsible for some sort of school-based errand. Beneath this seemingly ordinary secondary institution lies an extratemporal, extraspatial, non-Euclidean space that causes all sorts of problems. If you head into the school's sub-basement underneath the pool, there's a stone arch with an inscription that reads, "The way below winds deeper, longer, unspeakable its patterns laid, the lost forever damned to wander, this thing a quiet madness made." Yeah, sounds cursed and eldritch. This arch, or maybe even something else that Foundation members haven't been attuned to yet, causes all sorts of anomalous activity to occur in and around Salvation High School. In fact, the whole town of Salvation seems to be affected in some way by these anomalies. At first, students started hearing disembodied voices coming from underneath the school. This was discounted as nonsense at first because who believes anything a teenager says? Soon after, faceless forms were reported floating around campus and flags started floating mid-air unattached to anything. More and more strange events started happening, many of which seemed to resemble glitches in poorly programmed video games. Water filled the school, but administration didn't shut anything down, and students came in and went about their day mostly as per usual. At some point, students started clipping through floors, but nobody seemed surprised. Things would only get weirder from there. These days, the Foundations has essentially condemned the school, the town, and even surrounding areas. So don't visit unless you like teleporting to physically inaccessible places and getting stuck. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Kangerlugsuaq Glacier in Greenland. You do know that Iceland is quite temperate and Greenland is largely covered in ice, right? Or at least that's what they tell me. I've never personally visited. And I don't plan on finding out the truth myself anytime soon, especially after reading about this glacier in particular. A lot of ice melts every year, which is bad news, and if something were to happen to this difficult to pronounce mass of ice we're talking about in this entry, we'd be in even bigger trouble. I know it's hard to imagine a bigger issue than a major climate crisis, but bear with me. When Greenpeace activists visited this glacier while making a documentary, they came across a whole network of tunnels within it. Following these paths deeper and deeper, they eventually discovered a gigantic snake. Stick around too long and you'll fall deathly ill. We're talking swollen lymph nodes, skin necrosis, and more. The whole Greenpeace team was dead by nightfall, and anyone else who went in unprepared suffered a similar fate. The snake is truly enormous, large enough to present a major threat to all nearby settlements, but seemed to be encased in ice at many points. It's been asleep for many years, and during this time different tunnels have collapsed, essentially trapping it. Nobody knows if this is resources enough to keep it in one place if it awakens though. So if you want to visit this picturesque icy location, you should know that there's always the looming threat of an enormous toxic snake waiting within a glacier. Right, I forgot to elaborate on this bit. The Greenpeace team died because the snake breathes poison, so maybe just avoid this spot altogether. Coming in at number 3, we've got Lake Redacted within Redacted County. Redacted. When you see so much redacted text in one location, you know you're in for some trouble. I'd tell you not to visit, but you'll likely never figure out where this place is anyway. Either way, I feel compelled to tell you, you do not recognize the bodies in the water. Seriously, you don't. See, this lake is special. Folks who come close to it swear they see someone they know dead in the water. But it's important that you remember, you do not recognize the bodies in the water. There are some anomalous forms in the water, but they definitely don't belong to anyone you know. This constant refrain doesn't seem to help too many people though, as most folks who do see bodies in the water become convinced that they belong to friends, family, or acquaintances. Once this thought is planted in their heads, they'll wade into the water, attempting to help out whoever they may see floating there. And then, they never come out. This last bit is doubly troublesome, as every new body the lake takes on seems to strengthen its pull. More people will be drawn in from a wider radius. So please, for the sake of all that is good and lovely, do not attempt to find this lake. And if you do, remember, you do not recognize the bodies in the water. Coming in at number 2, we've got Daleport. Lovecraft fans, do your best to resist the urge to immediately travel here. It's full of eldritch monstrosities, sure, but that's equally attractive and repulsive if you think about it for a moment. And there are no survivors from the anomalous event, which might just push the needle a little further towards repulsive. What you can expect to find is the following: a smear of entrails and viscera capable of picking up audio-radio transmissions, a torso embedded in a wall, constantly spawning blood 15 centimeters above it, the body of an old man with ash constantly spewing from its eye sockets, human corpses littering the streets with circular holes in their foreheads, floating torsos outside the library at specific times every day, and more. These seem to be remnants of whatever the hell happened here, and I don't know if it's a good idea to try and solve the mystery behind it all. What's in the past is indeed in the past, but to retread that ground isn't the best call, especially when it's ground that a local cult spent plenty of time setting up for a grand battle between Great One type beings. God, just the destruction they left behind might be enough to tear one's mind asunder. Heed my warning. Coming in at number 1, we've got the intersection of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This might seem oddly specific and vague, but trust me, you don't want anything to do with this location. Seriously, if you somehow manage to make it through the Foundation's perimeter, you'll find yourself in a situation unlike any other. In Dr. Clef's 001 proposal, he outlines a being that can be compared to an angel of some sort. Probably, but no one's really sure what exactly it is. In the trials that have been performed, different people and machines have been sent towards the gigantic flaming humanoid in the sky. Get too close and get obliterated. There really isn't much else to understand here. Sure, it often gives folks orders and they usually follow, but that almost seems inconsequential in the face of a being like this. Knowing this, you can probably make the decision all on your own to avoid this river intersection. But hey, if you do decide to visit, make sure you've made peace with who and whatever you may need to before taking those last few steps. Coming in at number 5, we've got DClass Origins. If you've perused enough SCP content, you're probably familiar with the term D-Class. But what is D-Class? Well, it's essentially an infinitely expendable human subject, used for everything from exploring lesser known SCPs in their habitats or literal live bait. Often they have criminal or otherwise antisocial pasts, which means that the Foundation can usually get away with killing them or losing them or generally removing them from society at large. But how do they have so many? Does the Foundation exist somewhere that has a nigh infinite supply of capital criminals? At some point they'd have to run out, right? Well, there are theories about how they actually keep their D-Class storehouses full. None of them are too pretty though. One is that the Foundation exists in a reality that sucks pretty hard. Insane amounts of crime, taking advantage of an overly zealous police force. The folks who get arrested and incarcerated are then gladly lent to the government contracted Foundation, who uses them in any way they need, which often ends up having them get eaten or dissolved or teleported somewhere not fit for human life. You know. There's the other idea that they don't actually kill off all their D-Class. A lot of these guinea pigs actually do come back in one piece after missions after all. So wouldn't it be just a waste to euthanize them on the spot? Why not get a little more use out of the orange jumpsuited crash test dummies? Foundation is well versed in memory wipes with plenty of amnestics at their disposal, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume that they would take any individuals who made it through one test, delete their memories, and then send them off to test a new one. Infinitely reusable! Well, at least until their brains cease to work after being scrubbed clean so many times. Lastly, there's the possibility that an SCP is being used to clone some key D-Class. That's right, every once in a while an outstanding criminal gets carted to the Foundation. Strong, sharp, and brave, this individual is a much better test subject than the regular stock. So what do? They run them through the anomalous copier and end up with hundreds of identical lab rats. Come on, you've heard of crazier things. What kind of D-class nonsense do you believe? Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-420-J. Real quick, if you guys are enjoying this video, it would really help us if you give a big thumbs up. Thank you. And hopefully you are enjoying this video. If not, maybe see if you can get your hands on some of the sweet SCP-420-J. Nobody's supposed to know about it, especially not researchers. Because whenever somebody finds out about it, they tend to be a little less effective on the job. Object class? Awesome. Actually, scratch that, it's totally safe. SCP-420-J is what happens when you let people access SCP-914 unsupervised. They put some very nice stuff from Jamaica through on very fine and enjoyed the results. So what better way to extend the fun than by growing the resulting seeds in SCP-124? You know, the soil that makes plants grow anomalously fast, and well, the rest is history. 420-J has been tested on all sorts of different anomalies, usually with the result being increased appetite and euphoria. However, this led to some unprofessional conduct, and the stuff has since been seized, seeds and all. Dr. Clef originally confiscated it all, but he wasn't immune to the seductive scent of 420-J either. These days, it's hard to tell where exactly it all ended up. Maybe it's still circulating, maybe it's been destroyed. There are extensive experiment logs though, so if you got the time, you can find out exactly how all sorts of different things react. But nobody's supposed to know about it, or have any on them. And Lord, please, don't give any to the lizard. The last thing anyone needs is something like that with the munchies. Coming in at number 3, we've got the broken Masquerade. I suppose this is an example of what happens when a secret gets out. See, the whole SCP Foundation is predicated on the fact that it's top secret. The average layperson would not accept the way the Foundation operates if they found out about it. Too many ethical conundrums, too few logical explanations. So keeping the whole operation under wraps is paramount to its success. In the Broken Masquerade hub though, all of this is revealed to the world in the most dramatic way possible. Everybody knows the secret now, and there is no way to amnesticize everyone all at once. The cat's out of the bag, and now we've got to deal with the consequences, and boy, there are plenty of consequences. Previously low-profile researchers and officials from within the Foundation are now seen as celebrities, getting interviews in magazines and going on TV to attempt to soften their image. There's plenty to answer for here, and the Foundation has to do one hell of a spin job to keep the public satisfied. That's a lot of work, don't you think? Of course, there's all the stuff about North Korea to worry about too. Had this secret remained under wraps, there wouldn't be all this recovery to worry about, but everyone would have continued living in ignorance. Now that it's all out though, it stays out. Good luck to all involved for sure. At least they can now recruit people more publicly, kind of like how the military goes around looking for their soldiers. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-579. When we think about all the information we're fed via the SCP Wiki, we often think we have the complete documents. Sure, there's some information redacted, but that's just a result of the structure of the Foundation, right? Well, some people theorize that different articles have different levels of clearance attached. So if you're reading something that's heavily redacted, there's another version of that document somewhere with all the details filled in. But you'd need higher clearance to access that, and you're not rising in the Foundation's ranks anytime soon now, are ya? SCP-579 is a perfect example of a secret that really plays with your head. It could be literally anything, but you'll never know exactly what it is. Fill in those blanks all you like, there's no way to know for sure if you're right. See, the description of SCP-579 is expunged. It's gone. However, there are some wonderfully vague containment procedures to keep folks in the know about how to keep the Keter class anomaly at bay. If you keep reading, you'll see that there's some addenda with equally useless information shoehorned in, and even a timeline outlining the SCP's original discovery. But guess what? The timeline is full of data that has been permanently expunged. The only info that can be gleaned is about how it's been discovered, contained, moved, or how containment has failed. No details, no elaboration, just the fact that those events happened. Maybe somebody knows all the juicy details, but that person hasn't shared them with anyone else. Probably for the best, don't you think? And finally at number 1, we've got O5 theories. The O5 Council, the most mysterious and inscrutable construct within the Foundation. They call the shots, they have final say over everything, and in most cases hold all the secrets that keep the Foundation together. But who is the O5 Council? Is it a group of people? Or is it just one person pretending to have more going on? Or maybe, just maybe, there is no O5 Council at all. It could just be a safeguard against chaos. You know, the idea of an all-powerful group of people watching at all times is pretty useful for keeping folks in line. There are so many different tales related to the O5, so many vague mentions and containment procedures, so many Easter eggs and signs of life sprinkled all throughout the wiki. But does anyone actually know what's going on at the top? Maybe it's for the best that we've all stayed ignorant of these secrets. Who knows what the consequences of finding the truth could be? Maybe they don't have the best interests of those working for them at heart after all. This is one of those topics that doesn't really have an easy answer. You can point to tales and dossiers and 001 proposals and come up with 100 different ideas as to what the council really is, but none of that will won't bring you any closer to the truth. It's the Foundation's biggest secret after all. So let me know what your O5 theories are down in the comments. Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-2678. This one is known as the Vor Hole. Let that sink in for a second. Interestingly enough, this SCP is no longer available on the wiki proper. You have to find the archived page to read about the Vorhole. The current 2678 is a strange copy of an empty cathedral with an organ sitting in the middle, but the original is much, much stranger. Hopefully I don't cause any problems by bringing the OG Vorhole back into the public eye. Ready for some weirdness? Because I'm not. So if you're driving around the southeastern states, you might find some telltale signs of this SCP. Billboards on the highway will suddenly display new advertisements, ones for places, products, or experiences that don't exist. However, the legitimacy of the ads doesn't really matter, as anyone who sees one will be compelled to pull over and get out of their car in order to search for SCP-2678. Near these billboards will be a busted up old structure, maybe an abandoned roadside motel or a shack from the pre-highway days. Either way, the billboard citers will feel like they have to enter this space and will find some sort of entrance. The entrance acts as an access point to a spatial distortion which leads to SCP-2678. Folks will then find themselves in a big, weird cathedral of sorts, full of caustic air that quickly degrades any and all biological material. In the center of the room, there is a pit, and at the bottom of this pit, there is some sort of entity. People are drawn towards this hole, throw themselves in, and then are swallowed whole by the creature in there. Yikes. To make matters even weirder, folks affected by this tend to express odd increases in body temperature and libido. So they get all riled up and then they get swallowed whole by a monster. I guess that's what some people are into, but to be forced off the highway and lured into something's belly doesn't exactly sound like a rational choice. There's a quasi-religious and pretty cult-like organization that supports this anomaly, and they believe that if enough people are consumed by the thing in the hole, their goals will be completed. So extra creepy, extra weird. For now, just avoid tourist traps altogether. It's never worth it anyways. This way you avoid spending any money on cheap trinkets, and you also don't get drawn into a weird cult consumption craze. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-919. Mirror images and doppelgangers are a staple of mythology across the world. There's nothing creepier than coming across someone who is exactly like you, but separate from you. It's unsettling, uncanny, and unpleasant. Naturally, folks have some reservations about mirrors as well. If the person on the other side started acting out of turn, what are you supposed to do with that information? Just pretend it didn't happen, or walk around the rest of your life with the knowledge that there is some other version of you trapped in a reflective surface, in all reflective surfaces? If you agree that mirrors can be truly creepy under the right circumstances, SCP-919 is going to weird you right out. It seems to be a full-length mirror in excellent condition. However, if somebody stands in front of it for more than 15 seconds, their reflection will break synchronization and act of its own accord. It will beg the person not to leave, which is fraught with implications. This mirror person will seem to be totally autonomous and fully self-aware. Its memories will be the same as whoever it's reflecting, but it also knows that if the person leaves, it will cease to exist. If said person moves to a spot where the reflection is no longer visible, their reflection will scream and disintegrate. Sounds painful. Worse yet, if the person returns to the mirror, their reflection will also return, and then also seemingly have knowledge that their doppelganger knowingly let them experience that disintegrating agony. Continued exposure to this mirror has been proven to be detrimental to subjects' mental health. Seeing yourself beg for your life and then hearing your own screams of agony as your double disintegrates will do that to a person. All in all, it's a good thing that the Foundation keeps this hidden away from the public. Here's something even weirder. If the original subject dies while in front of the mirror image does not perish. In fact, it'll request that you leave the body behind so that it can continue to exist. But once the corpse is cleared, the disintegration will happen anyways. Grim. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-1728, Headless Butterman. Need I say more? Probably not, but I will anyways. This greasy, dairy-filled freak is a very weird case indeed. See, it's a headless humanoid without the ability to speak, but it can still perceive and interact with the world around it as any other human might. It's got the mind of a child and is able to write, using this ability to communicate with the Foundation personnel. Pretty weird so far, but that is just the beginning. SCP-1728 is constantly exuding a substance chemically identical to unsalted butter from its its skin. If you wipe it away, more will be produced. This makes SCP-1728 very slippery. The butter will stay on its body until it brushes up against something, and the butter will wipe off onto that object. And at the ends of its fingers, it has hollow bone points that also exude butter. These can be used to write using the butter and as low-pressure butter jets. Now, Butterman doesn't like being in containment. He used to have a cast iron knife that didn't slip from his grip, but the Foundation has locked it away. So Butterman does his best to avoid being contained, and the slipperiness helps him a lot with this goal. He can squeeze out of most restraints thanks to the butter, and can even slide around at speeds up to 34 kilometers per hour. It's like a butter frozone. For now, the Foundation has a series of procedures that seem to be able to keep 1728 in place. Cold helps to keep him still, and for whatever reason, polyurethane works better than all sorts of other materials at preventing slippage. Personally, I would be stoked to have a butter-producing friend, but he did stab a person before being contained, so it might not be a healthy friendship. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-093. Now here is another SCP involving the misuse of mirrors. That's not all that's notable here, but it seemed right to mention it. While the SCP itself isn't a monster, if used correctly, it opens a gate to a world filled with some of the scariest monsters this side of 682. 093 is a disc carved from a material resembling cinnabar, covered in strange symbols. It will change colors based on whoever's holding it, although it's not really known what each color means at this time. The thing wants to be on a mirror, and if you place it somewhere that isn't reflective, it will roll until it finds its way onto a shinier surface. At that point, if somebody makes contact with the disc, they will begin to move into the mirrored surface, and if allowed to continue through, will find themselves in a brand new place. Depending on the color of the disc, the subject will end up somewhere different. In the alternate world, something has gone terribly wrong. Folks have discovered that a hyper-religious sect took over for a while, and a new godlike being began rewarding those it considered clean of sin. In order to fight a holy war against some really horrifying beasts, the godlike entity granted humans some wicked technological advances, ones that ran on a strange religious substance known as his tears. Unfortunately, this substance also had great corruptive power, and turned a lot of folks into the very monsters they set out to purify. The unclean, giant humanoids cut off at the legs. They crawl around absorbing people into their bodies, and really that's just the beginning of it. Thankfully, the Foundation has the disc contained, so hopefully nobody's making any unintended round trips into this alternate world. And finally, at number 1, we've got SCP-504. Remember that movie, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes? Well, these are definitely one type of killer tomato. They look and smell and taste just like normal tomatoes, and if, nobody ever made a bad joke, they'd actually be indistinguishable from your garden variety fruit. But terrible humor is a hallmark of humanity, and therefore these tomatoes are deadly. Anytime a bad joke is made in the vicinity of one of these tomatoes, they instantly accelerate to a speed of at least 100 miles per hour towards the source of the sound. That is one quick sandwich ingredient. It doesn't matter what condition the fruits are in. You can have them sliced, whole, smashed, etc., but the pieces will go flying towards that joke, and the results are messy. A nice mix of blood and ketchup, and sometimes it's hard to... Hey.
Number 5. SCP-2107, a soda to diet for. Imagine, if you will, you are walking through the city on a hot day. Perhaps you've been for a jog, or were simply running errands. Either way, you are parched, thirsty, or otherwise dehydrated. You decide to stop in at your local convenience store to grab something to drink. You peruse the refrigerated shelves, passing by the usual suspects. Cans of Coke, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper, when suddenly, something catches your eye that you've never seen before. A simple silver can with a light blue label called Diet Ghost. Under the name is a small subtitle which promises that this beverage will scare your thirst away. You've never seen this drink advertised, but you think perhaps it is just a new drink on the market. Or perhaps it is a drink normally sold in foreign markets that the store owner has chosen to import. Either way, your curiosity cries out to be satisfied, and you take the silver can to the counter, pay for it, crack it open, and take a swig. At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary. The drink is quenching and refreshing, but before long, something starts to feel off. Things in your home begin to move by themselves. Strange whispers are heard when your home is otherwise empty. Strange phantom figures appear and disappear without warning. Depending on how much of the mystery soda you ingested, the paranormal activity may be more and more intense, and can result in you being harmed or even killed. This is the nature of SCP-2107. The Foundation report claims that anyone who ingests such a drink is to be treated with Class A anesthetics and remitted to the nearest hospital until the mystery drink passes through the victim's system. When the Foundation goes to the store where the soda was purchased, the employees usually claim that they had no knowledge of such a drink, and their inventory records show no record of such a drink being ordered or delivered. This implies that some malevolent force is stocking the shelves of stores and bodegas with a harmful beverage that causes innocent shoppers to experience terrifying encounters with the paranormal. Number 4. SCP-1171 The Prejudiced Window Dweller. The next story begins in Queensland, Australia, where a homeowner moves into a house that was built in 1958. At first, it seems like a normal home, until strange occurrences begin occurring, leading the homeowner to believe that the house is being haunted. The home is investigated by civil authorities, which eventually leads to the home being investigated by the Foundation's agents. What they find is so incredible that they feel the need to purchase the home through a front organization and alter the memories of the previous homeowner. They put a doctor in the home, posing as the new owner, to study it and erect a tall wall around the backyard. All the windows are fitted with shutters, and several agents are moved in for security under the guise of being lodgers. All year, despite changing humidity and weather, the windows are covered by a layer of condensation that cannot be explained. Words suddenly begin appearing, written in the condensation, as if an appendage has been dragged through the moisture. The doctor discovers that by writing messages in the condensation with his finger, he can achieve two-way communication. He learns that the entity is from another dimension and is not human, and worst of all, despises humans. The doctor lies about being a human in order to learn as much as possible. Here is the record of their conversations. "Carbon-based monkeys, go home!" Hello? There is a pause. "Someone there?" The doctor introduces himself. "Nice to meet you. I'm Boramont." "Where are you?" "In my living room. Where are you?" "In another living room." "This is neat. How are you doing this?" "Is there no one else there?" Mostly just a bunch of gametes and carbon lovers. Can't hardly stand any of that politically correct crap." "Say, what do you look like?" "Oh, pretty average. 7 tendrils tall, brown carapace, green bioluminescence, blue eyes. You?" "Same." The SCP doesn't ever seem to catch on to the fact that he has befriended a human, and goes on several tangents against the species, calling them air-sucking sacks of protoplasm, and implying that violence might end up being the solution to dealing with them. What is the social order in this SCP's dimension? And how will he react when he realizes a human has been lying to him? Number 3, SCP-1450 The Paint Bug. Imagine the following terrifying situation. You have moved into an old home, or perhaps you are visiting an abandoned warehouse as an urban explorer. Either way, the surroundings are old, and you are a curious type. At first, the building seems normal, but eventually, you make your way to one of the rooms. The wall is painted a light shade of blue, but you are more interested in the contents of the room than the color of the walls. After a moment, you look at the navy wall with confusion. You're almost sure that it was a different color when you came in. You go up to one of the walls to take a better look, when the color suddenly changes again. But this time, you try to move, but realize that the bright shifting colors have mesmerized you, and try as you might, you cannot bring yourself to move. It is at this moment that you realize that a massive colony of insects has covered your body while you have been standing there frozen. As if that wasn't bad enough, they are extremely hungry. They begin to bite, tearing small chunks of your flesh away at an alarming rate. Though you can feel every bite, you still cannot move, as the bugs consume every ounce of you, leaving nothing behind except your bones. This is the hunting pattern of SCP-1450, who have chromatic plating, which allows them to affect a form of metacrosis in order to mimic the dried paint of the walls, before their prey becomes aware of them, at which point they will begin moving together to form the mesmerizing and hypnotic pattern. The Foundation works to contain these creatures and ran the following test to learn more about them. A D-Class test subject was sent into the SCP's holding cell, with instructions to wait for 20 minutes. Minutes 1 to 5. D-Class subject does nothing. SCP-1450 displays no reaction. Minutes 5 to 7. D-Class subject paces about the room. SCP-1450 slowly begins to shift in hue. Minute 7. D-Class subject goes to examine nearest portion of SCP-1450. From here, all notations made are based off of studied recordings, as the observation group recalls nothing after minute 7. Analysis shows observation group was affected in the same manner as D-Class test subject. Minutes 8 to 13. D-Class subject examines SCP-1450. It responds by shifting its chroma to stun D-Class subject. The examined portion of SCP-1450 holds the color pattern, while the rest of the colony disengages from its nest to begin climbing D-Class subject. Subject appears unaware of the presence of the SCP on his body. Minutes 13 to 20. D-Class subject becomes aware of SCP-1450 and begins striking at the nearest members with his hands. SCP-1450 immediately responds by biting into his legs. Subject is immobilized by pain and collapses. SCP-1450 finishes swarming over his form and proceeds to consume all material present, excluding the subject's bones. SCP-1450 returns to original position and hue. Number 2. SCP-6373, The Puppet Show from Hell. The Goffard Theater in Reading, Pennsylvania was opened in 1860 by Timothy Goggard and would host stage plays, musical performances, and most importantly, puppet shows. The puppets were designed by Goffard himself, with the most notable and consistently featured puppets being an elderly male in black with a beret named Pierre, a big disembodied head with big ears who can only speak in groans named Glouton, a smaller disembodied woman's head named Âme, who is frequently the target of Pierre's violent outbursts, and a long-necked clown named Jacques. Goffard came upon hard times after his divorce and lost the theater before dying soon after. In the years since, the puppets would come to life in the theater at 6 p.m. every night, and would begin to move on their own and perform bizarre and disturbing shows for anyone in attendance. The Foundation began to study the performances, which got darker and more violent and disturbing as time went on. Here is the report from one such performance. Pierre performs a piano duet with Jacques, who is unable to be quiet or still. Though Jacques apologizes, Pierre repeatedly slams the puppet's head into the piano, denting it. When Pierre is finished, viewers note Jacques' jaw has detached completely. Jacques' laughter turns into pained cries as the puppet takes damage. Within minutes, viscous yellow fluid begins to seep from Jacques as it fails to reattach its jaw. Audience describes the liquid's odor as repugnant. Pierre retrieves Âme and forces the puppet to sit in the puddle of the fluid. This event marks the beginning of a trend towards increasingly violent behavior. While puppets sustain heavy damage as a result, they begin each performance fully restored. Notably, Jacques' jaw is never fixed, and the fluid continues to seep from the puppet. Eventually, the puppets seem to have more and more trouble moving and speaking, before one night for their performance, they stood stationary for 18 minutes, before simply bowing and collapsing to the ground, never to move or perform again. Upon inspection, each puppet had human organs within it, with Pierre containing a brain, Jacques a heart, Glouton an indecipherable mass of organs, and Âme being strangely empty. Number 1. SCP-3219, Lost in the Woods. This SCP is a 7-square-kilometer region of space in South Mountain National Park. It exhibits a strange aura that makes animals avoid it, and people who enter it often report dizzy spells, hearing strange and unexplained sounds, as well as losing time, or sometimes disappearing completely, without ever being seen again. The Foundation has set up a 90-kilometer exclusion zone in order to attempt to stem these disappearances, but more and more people keep going missing after inadvertently wandering into this area of the woods. An example of the strange occurrences can be found in the Foundation's incident report, number 3210-0219. It reads as follows. 4 members of the Bonafide family were reported missing after failing to return home from a camping trip planned within South Mountain State Park. Park rangers cooperated with local police to organize a search party. On the first day, hunting dogs led the search party to the edge of SCP-3219. The dogs refused to enter. Furthermore, the search party described several incidents of dizziness, lost time, and erratic behavior among nearby wildlife. On the third day, 2 members of the search party disappeared. Shortly after this incident, the Sutherland Sheriff's Office ordered all workers to continue the search for the Bonafide family in a region adjacent to SCP-3219. After a 3-month-long investigation, no traces of the Bonafide family or the 2 missing rescue workers were found.
Number 5. SCP-3199, The Refuted. Our first entry to be cleared for discussion is SCP-3199, a Keter-class object, sometimes referred to colloquially as The Refuted, but we prefer not to use sensationalized words like that internally. This photo you're looking at was a photo taken by a researcher when SCP-3199 was being brought in on its first recovery. SCP-3199 refers to the documentation of an entire species of sapient biological entities of currently indeterminable origin, but we're working on it. We found several tissue samples and have found presence of chicken, chimpanzee, stoat, mussel, adders, and trace amounts of human DNA, muddying the waters of just what exactly our friends here are. Now, fascinatingly, these creatures produce eggs to fill unoccupied space within their bodies. They reproduce asexually, and from our studies, it's been shown that there does not appear to be a limit to the number of eggs inside a single instance of SCP-3199. It's fascinating. The current theory is that on a long enough timeline, a single instance of SCP-3199 could potentially perform an LK-class species transmutation scenario, which I don't think I need to tell you we'd all prefer to avoid. All instances of SCP-3199 carry one egg within a specialized stomach-like organ, assuring that even after death, a living instance will carry on. Interestingly, this egg-laying process appears to cause SCP-3199 extreme distress, with some researchers noting that the sounds produced by the entity are not dissimilar to screaming, to quote the lab report. SCP-3199 is carefully monitored, as the creatures have been shown to be very opportunistic hunters, reacting violently defensive towards live subjects that approach their hatchlings. When an SCP-3199 feels that its young has been threatened, it will attack at a subject in a way I am not entirely authorized to discuss, but the process is quick and it liquefies the internal organs and bone structure of the victim, rendering them dead almost immediately. We have not observed any instances of SCP-3199 consuming prey in this matter. All instances are kept in containers of acid-resistant steel, and in extreme cases, stored in a block of transparent acrylic resin. And if you're curious about more information on bizarre entities from the SCP Foundation or otherwise, please consider a subscription to Top 5 Scary. It's best to stay informed. Number 4. SCP-2774, The Sloth. Don't panic when I tell you some of this. I promise you all of the images that are being shown to you have been carefully vetted and went through all proper channels before being displayed in this video. No one here is looking for a repeat of the SCP-096 incident. SCP-2774 is a Keter-class object and refers to any visual medium that contains the subsection SCP-2774-A. This subsection is an image of an unknown, possibly humanoid entity in what appears to be wearing a realistic sloth costume. Now, effects of viewing an image of SCP-2774-A don't occur immediately, but rather gestates on an incubation period of anywhere from 40 to 100 hours after that initial exposure. Those afflicted will slowly begin to lose their cognitive function and higher level decision making, and this usually occurs for short bursts, around 2 to 3 minutes, seemingly at random intervals every 24 hours. Please don't worry, all the images in this video have been heavily edited by the Foundation before being sent over. No threat is present. SCP-2774-A manifests itself in various forms of pre-recorded media. There was a notable incident in Fredericton, New Brunswick, where SCP-2774-A appeared for a few frames on a local television broadcast, which resulted in a mass hysteria case where over 4,000 people had to be tended to and relocated by the Foundation. We currently believe that SCP-277-4A possesses some level of enhanced ability the more people that are currently affected by it at once. It manifests more vividly the more people are affected, so to speak. Those infected by this cognitive loss have been observed to become incredibly fearful and irrational, very agitated. They report no memory loss, but they have no ability to comprehend their affections or understand what is happening. Some subjects in interviews have even reported that they felt completely powerless except to obey their basest thoughts, describing their body performing actions autonomously. We've observed in some cases that subjects who become afflicted by SCP-2744-A develop an obsession. In some longer observations, we've seen effigies, artistic renderings, and even writings being made by the subject, in some of the recovered subjects from the Fredericton incident. You're probably curious how the Foundation works to contain a non-physical object like SCP-2774. Well, I can't disclose everything. We do have automated programs scanning most broadcasts broadcasts for patterns of it, which are swiftly detected and destroyed. These programs are of course overseen by manual observation. We can't trust everything to artificial intelligence. Any instance in which we have reason to believe a person has been inflicted by SCP-2774 in a way that will cause them serious harm are temporarily relocated to Subject Site 116, where they are given top-of-the-line care from our medical staff round the clock. Number 3. SCP-1471, the app. Another SCP for the digital age is SCP-1471. It's a Euclid class object, and it refers to an app installed on smartphones, measuring just a little under 10 megabytes of data. It is referred to as Mal-O version 10.1 on digital marketplaces. This app doesn't appear to have any developer or user data attached to it. Now, it goes without saying, but please, after this video, do not attempt to look up or acquire this application. We work tirelessly to keep it from manifesting more. It's proven difficult to remove once it makes its way onto the storage of a mobile phone, oftentimes reinstalling itself or even outright preventing itself from being removed from the phone. After the application has been installed, no icons or shortcuts or even any data appears to be altered. The only noticeable change is that you will begin to receive text messages every 3 to 6 hours, and these messages enclosed will contain images of an entity with a canid-like skull and long flowing black hair. Again, these images that you're seeing, while they are real images of SCP-1471, they have been carefully edited to remove any lasting psychotropic energy. No need to look away. During the first 24 hours after installation, users will receive images taken from places frequented by the afflicted subject. As time progresses on a week-long trajectory, we'll start to see the afflicted user receiving images taken from locations that they have very recently visited, places like a grocery store, a pharmacy, or an office, and so on. On a 72-hour timeline, we begin to see the individual receiving images that have been taken in real time of the subject, with the entity hereto referred to as SCP-1741-A appearing directly behind the subject or in extremely close proximity. These individuals report that the canid skull entity is attempting to make communications with them, although they are unable to. To date, we have not observed any instances of hostile activity from SCP-147-A, and its desires are currently unknown to us. Number 2. SCP-323 The Wendigo. And this one is always a bit popular when we do these PR excursions, so I'm happy to talk about it. This is SCP-323, a Euclid class object. It manifests as the skull of an unidentified curvid with a pair of massive antlers growing from the left and right sides of the skull. And the skull shows normal outside exposure damage. It's got a bit of scarring, weathering, and bleaching, and a broken lower mandible. Now, interestingly, the back of the skull has a centered depression, and this gap shows signs of tool wear and use, suggesting that the gap was carved with tools, likely stone. And there is a small chance the skull as a whole was carved, but low. SCP-323 appears to have some sort of radius of mental control. We've recorded a very powerful influential effect spreading roughly 15 meters outside of the object. Individuals affected by this radius, which some researchers have unofficially dubbed the terror radius, find themselves overwhelmed with extreme urges, predominantly violent. More often than not, these subjects report feeling extreme desires to consume human flesh. Roughly 3/4 of all individuals that have been afflicted by the terror radius will attempt to place their heads through the gap in SCP-323, keeping their mouth uncovered while they do this. Should a subject find themselves unable to put the skull over their own head, well, we've seen in extreme cases in which the subject will attempt to physically alter the shape of their head, bludgeoning on nearby objects, or until the subject expires. Once the subject is able to mask themselves with the skull, we consider them a new entity, hereto referred to as SCP-323-A. And this new entity is shown to have extreme pain resistance and increased strength, but very interestingly does not appear more durable than a standard human subject. This creature then demands food and feels pangs of starvation 15 minutes after transformation. It only seems to consume human flesh, and we have observed it to outright refuse any other sources of meat. It even appears to speak in short statements in Cree, Tawatomi, and Severn Ojibwe languages. Number 1. SCP-106. SCP-106 is a Keter class object and is one of our more famous, frequently asked about objects. It is sometimes referred to unofficially as the Old Man due to its appearance resembling an elderly human male, albeit one that is severely decomposed. SCP-106 causes a profoundly strong corrosion effect in all solid matter that it makes contact with, causing whatever it touched to break down in a matter of seconds. We've observed this occurring on a wide variety of substances, ranging from things like concrete, steel, plaster, to flesh and tissue. You can see it rusting, rotting, and cracking, and a creation of a viscous black-like substance wherever it's been. This substance is highly toxic and is very, very effective at breaking down living tissue. Through this corrosive effect, SCP-106 has been observed being able to pass through solid matter entirely, leaving behind large swaths and trails of the mucus mucus as it vanishes into the surface. While it's doing this, it appears to enter a pocket dimension. It's then able to exit this dimension from any point connected to the original entrance. For example, as a thought experiment, if it connected a point to a wall, it could then exit through the ceiling. As of this recording, we are still trying to ascertain if the dimension is the point of origin for 106, or merely something it accesses. Through limited research and observation, we've discovered that the pocket dimension appears to be comprised of mostly seemingly uninteresting hallways and rooms manifesting as a nondescript office building, following no clear sensible layout. We've seen some cases where victims are pulled into this dimension and kept captive for days on time, but for what purpose though, currently unknown. Number 5. SCP-1128. Number 5 on our list, 1128, is a terrifying entity that manifests itself as a colossal aquatic predator. It's sometimes described as a being similar to a shark, only in a more grotesque and twisted appearance, with common descriptions across all sightings being a mouth full of teeth. The entity manifests itself as an aquatic predator to anyone who is given a full description of the beast's appearance, either through a written description or a spoken description, so sorry for describing it. Few surviving subjects have described it as resembling a massive monstrous deformed shark. Once a subject is exposed to detailed knowledge of 1128, they become infected by its latent psychic ability, forming a connection. From here, no immediate abnormal changes in behavior or occurrences are present, with the only notable variance being a hesitation to enter bodies of water, for good reason too. Once an exposed subject submerges themselves completely in water, they are caught by 1128. Any submerged water is enough. Subjects are taken mysteriously to an ocean, the location of which is redacted by the Foundation. From here, you are hunted by SCP-1128. The Foundation patrols this unmarked ocean in a desperate attempt to contain the creature and protect anyone unfortunate enough to be caught in its trap. It's difficult to interview subjects after an exposure, as any detailed description of the encounter does run the risk of contaminating more Foundation members. Should a member or subject become infected by SCP-1128, treatment is immediately advised, with Class C amnesiacs being used to try and block memory of the entity. So, maybe for your sake and my sake, try to forget number 5 entirely, for your own safety. Now, the Foundation does advise that if you've been enjoying the content that we produce, you should toss a subscribe our way. Number 4. SCP-1451. SCP-1451 is an odd one, even by Foundation standards. SCP-1451 presents itself as a set of 26 metal statues at the bottom of the ocean. All appear to be statues of children of varying heights. The statues are all standing in a circle, holding each other's hands and facing outwards in a ring formation. Should any object, living or otherwise, with a mass greater than 40 grams enter into the ring, SCP-1451 begins to animate. The statues will shift themselves in a counterclockwise movement. Their hands will raise and lower slightly, and bubbles can be seen protruding from their mouths. Once it becomes fully animated, SCP-1451 displays advanced strength and tactics, being reported to use various martial arts to dispatch targets, pressure point application on humans, and precise strikes on machinery. They move in perfect unison and coordination, with some speculation that they operate on some level of hive mind mentality across the 26 individual entities. Once SCP-1451 has begun its hunt, it will not rest until it is disposed of whatever invaded its territory. The Foundation refers to 3 states of SCP-1451. Class 1 is the initial ring of statues in its inert state, Class 2 is the slight animation and bubbling seen present, and a Class 3 situation is when an active hunt has begun. To try and prevent a Class 3 situation, the SCP Foundation has installed a sphere of wire mesh netting to ensure nothing too large enters the ring. Natural water currents and oceanic movement aren't to be obstructed. The creature does need to eat sometimes. Number 3. SCP-835. SCP-835 manifests itself as a large cluster of polyps resembling a species of coral, although it's significantly larger than any discovered species of coral. The center mass of the cluster is a very large oval with 3-meter-long polyps at each end. SCP-835 does not move, instead anchoring itself to the ocean floor using heaving tentacles that protrude from the polyps. The tentacles are coated in an adhesive substance and have been shown to be incredibly strong, capable of damaging bulkheads and steel. The coral base of SCP-835 is extremely durable and resistant to most attempts to collect any tissue samples, with the Foundation having to use high-powered diamond drill bits to collect even small samples of DNA. SCP-835 emits a large mass of semi-liquid material several times a day from each polyp. The toxic substance appears to be a mixture of digested solids, fecal matters, several bacteria, viruses, and parasites, with many sequences having originated only from 835. So what exactly makes SCP-835 so threatening? Well, sample reports from SCP-835 have shown that it's comprised almost exclusively of human DNA. Its hard shell seems to be recycled tooth enamel, its tentacles matching human flesh. A level 4 clearance declassified document from the Foundation detailed an encounter with an underwater isolation team, in which an incident in which 2 members of the isolation team were swallowed by SCP-835. Pulled in by its tentacles deep underneath what they had initially thought to be a cave, but realized was the contents of SCP-835's stomach. The crew members reported descending deeper and deeper, spending up to 72 hours inside the creature's digestive tract, the insides of its intestines lined with remnants of unfortunate victims, claiming that they had been morphed into flesh, and there was a wall of faces crying for release. Eventually, one of the crew members was released, though after significant breaches to its suit, unfortunately, he had to be let go from the Foundation. We thank him for his service. Number 2. SCP-1092. SCP-1092 presents itself as a class of Asteichthyes fish, and when the creature is matured, it resembles any number of other ocean-dwelling fish, with the only notable variance being its increased aggressive behavior, attacking prey. It's difficult for the Foundation to study, as only adult specimens can be studied, as in its juvenile phase, SCP-1092 are parasites birthed from a living host. Once SCP-1092 infects the bloodstream of its host, absorbing nutrients directly from the host's blood. Once exposed, the parasites initially are but a few millimeters in most its size, but grow many times their size, with the largest extracted one on record being 2.1 centimeters. There is insufficient data on how SCP-1092 infects its hosts. The current research data theorizes that minuscule eggs makes its way into the body through small cuts and scrapes, which would explain the fish's violent tendencies. Those infected by SCP-1092 report fatigue, weight loss, and increased appetite, and in many cases report a feeling of something fluttering or squirming inside the body. However, this is not present in all cases, as there are reported case files of hosts not experiencing any visible symptoms whatsoever until the parasite has unfortunately matured to its adult aquatic stage. Once the parasites have matured, the now adolescent creature will try to forcibly remove themselves from the physical body of their host, using their sharp teeth to cut through blood vessels and skin. Subjects at this stage will sustain injuries, severe blood loss, and in some cases worse. Thankfully, the SCP Foundation has effectively secured SCP-1092, keeping it housed in a completely watertight cell, where it is given the occasional domestic pig to act as a host for its reproductive cycle. Poor little piggy. Thank you, piggy. Thank you, Foundation. Number 1. SCP-3000. SCP-3000 is one of the most powerful SCPs currently being monitored by the Foundation. SCP-3000 is a Class 8 cognitohazardous entity and is a Level 5 classified document. I really shouldn't even be talking to you about this, but it's good to get this information out there. It is a massive, massive aquatic sea serpent that closely resembles a moray eel, only gigantic. There's been significant difficulty in efforts in trying to document its true size, but it is estimated to be anywhere between 600 and 900 kilometers in length, with its head measuring roughly 2.5 meters wide and its body as large as 10 meters in diameter. SCP-3000, thankfully, is typically a sedentary creature, not moving much at all, usually only responding to feeding. The majority of its body rarely moves. SCP-3000 has been known to be carnivorous, and when it hunts, it has been known to move exceedingly quickly. Fascinatingly, despite its gargantuan size, SCP-3000 does not appear to need sustenance to maintain its body's function, and thus its digestive process is unknown. Although complicating matters slightly is a process wherein SCP-3000 disperses a thin layer of viscous dark gray sludge through its skin whilst it consumes its prey. It doesn't stop there though. SCP-3000 has been recognized to cause severe mental damage in those who research it. Direct observation and study has been proven to cause mental alteration in Foundation researchers, experiencing paranoia, fear, anxiety, memory loss, and most worryingly, inexplicable severe headaches. It's unknown how SCP-3000 causes this, but the theories are that it has a latent psychic ability. There are some who believe SCP-3000 could be an old god that has found its way into our world. The creature is too immense to be contained in any Foundation facility, instead being kept in a clandestine area of the Bay of Bengal, in an area barred from the public, routinely patrolled and surrounded by Foundation vessels. Be extremely thankful that the brave members of the Foundation are researching and containing this. Secure, contain, protect. Those are the goals of the Foundation.
And kicking off the list at number 5, we have SCP-096, or also known as the Shy Guy. He's a shy boy, I guess, little shy. Kidding, he's actually terrifying. He's a terrifying boy in that case. SCP-096 is a humanoid creature who is actually really chill. He's super calm, cool, and collect, that is, until you look at his face. So if you want to have a chat with the Shy Guy, you might have to do it over text message. Just don't FaceTime. For the love of God, do not click FaceTime. Because once you look at his face, it enters a stage of emotional distress. It will cover up its face and start losing it. I mean, it screams and it cries. It pretty much has a mental breakdown. And then it starts chasing whoever looked at its face. And after that, well, there isn't exactly an after in this case, if you get what I'm saying. You will then get chased down until it kills you. And then only after that, it will go back to its neutral state. So in this neutral passive state, SCP-096 will passively follow you. So if you're just texting, kind of doing your own thing, it'll kind of wander behind you, maybe poke in, see who you're talking to. Oh, it's that X again? Not a good idea, I don't know. He's just there, right? Like, have you seen Bird Box? Take some notes from Bird Box. So like I mentioned, this thing is really fast. And if you think you can run through a few doors, maybe catch a couple elevators, and Bob's your uncle, you're horribly, wildly mistaken. It will rip through whatever barrier is in front of it. I mean, this thing can rip through elevators. What do you think it's gonna do with your spinal cord? I don't know. And if you want to find this thing and play peekaboo, there are a few locations at the heavy containment zone where you would be able to find the Shy Guy. Locations like Gas Catwalk, 308 Gas Catwalk, the Graded Hallway, and the all-metal corridor, I believe. It has also appeared in the small server room, but that's because an unfortunate guard looked at its face. And that guard was, of course, brutally killed. And number 4, SCP-173. It rhymes. Isn't that neat? Love when that happens. Next up on our list is the Euclid class SCP-173, and it's personally one of my favorites. Now, normally you want to avoid most of these monsters, right? Make as little contact with it as possible, whether that's physical contact or in some cases, eye contact. Well, when it comes to SCP-173, in order to get near it, you need at least 3 people with you. In order for SCP-173 to not kill you, somebody has to maintain direct eye contact with it. And wouldn't it suck if you worked with somebody who went out for a smoke break? They're like, hey, you got this, right? You're like, yeah, for sure, take your time. So what exactly happens if you break this eye contact? Well, SCP-173 will then snap your neck at the base of your skull or strangle you, which I guess would take a long time with my neck, eh guys? I see your comments talking about my noodle neck. I see we all. I'm gonna respond to all of them. Top 5 people that shouldn't be commenting about my neck anymore. Looking right at you, that's right. I'd personally go for the neck snap, way faster, I don't know. Its origins are still unknown, but it's made up of concrete and rebar with a Krylon spray paint thrown into the mix. And the best part of this one, well, at least 2 people have to be staring at it, because even if you blink, that counts as breaking eye contact, even for that tiny amount of time. Maybe you could wink though, if you're just like, I don't know, that's how some dogs blink. It stresses me out. But that's so stressful. Better hope that if you wear contacts, they don't get dry at work, or else you're screwed. And of course, SCP-173 must be locked up at all times. Even after entering the container, you must lock the doors behind you. The only time you would go in is bi-weekly, and that's just to clean up the holding cell, of course. There's this reddish-brown substance on the floor, and apparently it's a fun combination of blood and feces, which sounds perfectly splendid. The sounds that SCP-173 make are reported to sound like scraping stone, which is fun. Even when nobody is inside, this is supposedly a normal thing. And if anybody walks by and they don't hear that, it means we got a problem. And you must report it to the acting HMCL supervisor on duty. Hashtag duty and blood. Gross. Number 3, SCP-682. This one's pretty fun. So SCP-682 is described as a large reptilian monster. Its origin, of course, remains unknown, as most of these are, but this creature is very smart. And at one point, this creature was engaging in a complex conversation with SCP-079, which was also a Euclid class in the form of a microcomputer. So if it can communicate by those means, it's got to be pretty street smart at the same time. Few things to know about SCP-682. It hates all life, ever. You, me, a tree? No siree. So what makes this creature so threatening? Why is it a Keter class? Well, it can move at extremely high speeds, its reflexes are just unreal, and its physical body also changes in size and shape. So this thing will eat a bunch of objects and then grow in size. Or maybe it can just shed a couple pounds of material and shrink down to a small boy. If you want to ask this thing a few questions for some reason, that's a big no-no. Nobody is to attempt communication with it at all. Ever. Period. End of story. Anybody who tries to communicate at all with it will be removed and restrained by force. Imagine that. Imagine the guard just standing there like, bless you. Ah, damn, sorry, I know. Reflexes, sorry. So how does one contain SCP-682? Well, you gotta get a 5 by 5 by 5 meter chamber with a 25 centimeter acid resistant steel plate lining on the inside. The chamber itself should ideally be filled with hydrochloric acid, so much so that SCP-682 is fully submerged in it. It's kind of like a hot tub, but I don't know. If it moves or speaks or does anything at all for that matter, you gotta handle it. You gotta handle it fast and forcefully, because this reptile from hell doesn't play around. Number 2, SCP-409. Now, with Superman's kryptonite being, well, kryptonite, you have to wonder if there's any type of crystal or rock that can do that kind of damage to humans. Well, fun fact, there is, and it's SCP number 409. Known as the contagious crystal, this Keter class crystal stands at 1.5 meters tall and will crystallize any object that comes into contact with it. So it takes about 3 hours to fully convert you into crystals, inside and out. And I thought growing pains were bad. Eek. Now this one is terrifying because it looks harmless. I mean, obviously. In fact, it looks like a large quartz crystal, so it's inviting more than anything. I love rocks. I actually had a rock collection growing up. Probably shouldn't have said that out loud, but it's too late. The only way to carry SCP-409 is by using a granite case. Now, you know we all have those granite cases lying around, you know? You got one in your garage? Cool, use that one. Granite is the only thing immune to this effect, and to this day we're not sure why. This is terrifying because you don't see anything scary, there's no warning. Whereas other SCPs, like the ones that I just mentioned, you kind of have an idea of what you're getting into just by looking at it. Like if there's a lizard in acid, you're like, oh, it's probably bad news. If this SCP was sitting on your granite desk at work, I'm sure you would lose about 8 co-workers within the first week. Cindy walks by, she's like, oh, it's nice, that's for candles. And then just, she's dead, that's it. So what does this even feel like? Well, let me tell you, it's not pleasant. It feels a lot like frostbite. And once your entire body is crystallized, it will then start to make creaky noises. And then, boom, you explode into 1,000 fragments. With force, too. You don't just like kind of crumble and collapse. You go, bah, and you explode. Probably taking out some eyes in the meantime. There's no getting out of that one. So once you touch it, you got a few hours to say your goodbyes. And not even nukes are gonna stop this one. And finally, we saved my favorite for last, number 1, SCP-049. SCP-049 is referred commonly to the Plague Doctor. And this one hits close to home because I played an evil Plague Doctor at a theme park for an entire month for Halloween a couple years back. That's me. Yep, you can probably tell by the stressed out shoulders and the sick pose. That's how I stood at work all the time. I was like, always about to sneeze. My shoulders hiked up. I love Plague Doctors. I think they're just the creepiest thing already, like just by how they look. Haunting of Bly Manor, one of the background ghosts right off the bat is a Plague Doctor, and I got so excited to see him in the background of all these scenes. And if you love that show and want to know more about these hidden ghosts, Lindsay Ivan did a bang up job with those, so check her out on our Most Amazing Top 10 channel and Top 10 Hidden Ghosts that you missed in the Haunting of Bly Manor. SCP-049 is a bit sicker than your average. This Euclid class SCP is a humanoid entity that of course resembles that of a Plague Doctor. It was discovered in the town of Montauban, which is located in southern France, during a raid. They actually found a few other SCPs called SCP-049-2s, which I'll get into a little later on. So let's talk about the design. These aren't clothes per se. These garments have actually grown out of SCP-49's body. That's quite the beak it's got there, wow. So the best part of this SCP is that just by one touch, it can kill you. And then after that, it roasts you and talks about how you did little to kill the pestilence. And yes, when I worked at this theme park, I was able to talk to guests, and yes, I had an absolute amazing time saying that to everybody. So after its touch of death, it will use whatever it has in its medical bag to bring you back. Only you come back as a zombie type humanoid. Yeah, those are the SCP-49-2s that I mentioned earlier. So after this point, it can control you. You have basic response and motor functions, but ultimately this Plague Doctor decides what your day entails.
Kicking off at number 5, Epsilon 6, codename Village Idiots. No matter what secretive, highly specialized missions the Foundation's MTFs carry out across the planet, there are inevitably always going to be some unwitting public witnesses. It just comes with the territory, really. Whether it's an old alcoholic farmer out in his field that swears he just saw SCP-682 flying past the moon, or a young family driving down a freeway when suddenly SCP-096 bolts in front of their family 5-door saloon. The underappreciated Unappreciated Mobile Task Force Epsilon 6, codename Village Idiots, are the group that the Foundation calls in when things get a little bit messy out in suburbia. Inevitably, any containment breach in a highly populated area garners the need to keep a lid on things. As the record states, Epsilon 6 specialise in the investigation, containment and subsequent cleanup of anomalies in rural and suburban environments. One of their most widely successful documented cases was their work with SCP-2480, an extra-dimensional anomaly located around the ancient Bodfound Manor in a small coastal town in Massachusetts with a population of 9,000 residents. Epsilon 6 quickly descended on the town after Bodfound Manor became the site of a grisly incident involving a neo-Sarkic cult known as Adetum's Wake, infiltrating the community where they still remain to this day, just in case the fanatical flesh cult decides to show up again. Better safe than sorry, isn't it? Swinging in at number 4, Beta 7, codename Maz Hatters. Talking about cleanups, for those of you that are astute scholars of the SCP Foundation, you may have noticed that things often get incredibly messy, especially when you're dealing with horrifying, grotesque, anomalous entities that have a tendency of leaking their inorganic matter all over the place, or incurable prion diseases floating around in a picturesque woodland, which is never a good sign. Essentially, Beta 7 are the Foundation's version of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As the record states, Mobile Task Force Beta 7, codename Maz Hatters, specialise in the acquisition and containment of anomalies exhibiting extreme biological, chemical or radiological hazards, as well as the rapid containment and cleanup of areas affected by these horrifying anomalies. Perhaps Beta 7's most infamous operation was with their containment of SCP-008, an incurable, 100% lethal prion disease that is transmitted through bodily fluids. One of its most grisly outbreaks was at Happy Acres Youth Camp, an outdoor wilderness experience in the mountainous regions of Wyoming. Wow, Beta 7 were the first people on site, but by the end of it, the entire camp was infected by 008. It's one hell of a read. We'll leave a link down below so you can take a look. Next up at number 3, Zeta 7, codename Mole Rats. Now, unfortunately for some, a lot of the wet work in the SCP Foundation involves many of its bravest operatives having to bite the bullet and poke their heads in places that no one else wants to poke. While, as their codename suggests, Mobile Task Force Zeta 7 specializes in the investigation, exploration and containment of underground or enclosed areas that exhibit anomalous phenomena, particularly those with inconsistent topography or unstable spacetime. Essentially, these are the guys that the Foundation calls in when a rift in spacetime appears out of nowhere and they're like, hey, you better jump on in, guys. It's your job. Now, it's a thankless job also, but someone's got to do it. And as it comes with the territory, Mobile Task Force Zeta 7 has some of the highest number of operatives that are registered as missing in action, or much more tragically, just straight up swallowed whole by an anomalous entity, tentacles and all. It's not only space-time anomalies that they're willing to plunge down into, though. Pretty much anything lurking beneath the ocean is at the responsibility of mole rats, and one of their most terrifying operations involved SCP-455, an infinite shipwreck that has never been fully explored, and Zeta 7 have already lost more operatives than they'd like to admit. Yeah, it's a bit of a tough job. Coming in at number 2, Epsilon 11, codename Nine-Tailed Fox. And yeah, you were just waiting for these guys, weren't you? For fans of the SCP Containment Breach video game, the phrase Mobile Task Force Unit Epsilon 11, designated Nine-Tailed Fox, has entered the facility will have a certain sense of resonance, to say the least, and heralds a moment where you know things are about to get really bad. Nine-Tailed Fox are the guys that the O5 Council call in when anomalous excrement hits the proverbial fan, and they're perhaps one of the most competent MTFs in the entire canon of the SCP Foundation. As the record states, Epsilon 11 handles internal security for the Foundation under oversight by Mobile Task Force Alpha 1. They are a special ops force deployed to Foundation sites when standard protocols fail and multiple breaches are imminent, and because of that, pretty much all of their operations are classified. Essentially, whenever a Foundation site falls into utter anomalous chaos during a containment breach, they send in Nine-Tailed Fox to make sure nothing gets out, and while they may be unequivocally the most badass operative force that the Foundation has in their arsenal, they're also completely horrifying because they'll go to any lengths to make sure their mission is a success. They're comprised of 9 veteran squad members that are unrivaled in their respective fields, and these guys don't even flinch when staring down entities such as SCP-682 and SCP-173 because they're capable enough to know, in that respect, if they blink, they're done for. The term XK class extinction event is terrifying enough in the SCP Foundation, but the phrase uttered afterwards musters an equal level of fear. Nine-Tailed Fox has entered the facility. And finally, at number 1 spot, Alpha 1, codename Red Right Hand. Because there is one operative task force that Epsilon 11 answers to, and it's these guys, Mobile Task Force Alpha 1, codename Red Right Hand. It's interesting to know that at one point in time Alpha 1 were the Foundation's way of acting outside of the realms of ethical operations, and they were created by the O5 Council as a means to enact their will without tarnishing the Foundation's already questionable reputation. However, in 1948, Alpha 1's most competent and trusted operatives committed an unprecedented act of betrayal against the Foundation, splintering off and forming the now infamous Chaos Insurgency. Despite that though, the O5 Council had enough foresight to keep their most capable mobile task force in operation, because only the Foundation's best are ordered to keep tabs on the most terrifying anomalous entities in their containment. Because of the nature of that though, it comes with a territory that pretty much nothing is known about them. As the record states, Mobile Task Force Alpha 1 are a group of highly specialized operatives that report directly to the O5 Council and are used in situations that require the strictest operational security. The task force consists of the Foundation's best and most loyal operatives, and any further information regarding Alpha 1 is classified level 5. So, in that case, I suppose you better get ready for a heavy dose of amnestics. Wait a minute, what was I saying again?
Starting off this list in our number 5 spot, we have SCP-1128. This SCP is a bit different than some of the other ones today, and that is because it is more of an etheric entity. This creature has the ability to manifest itself as an enormous aquatic predator, but only to those who have been given a full description of its appearance, so I'll try to refrain from doing that today. People who have been infected by the creature won't really show any symptoms or abnormal behavior, but it is possible that they might show extreme aversion to going into water. If an infected person enters the water and is fully submerged, no matter the depth, they will completely disappear underneath the surface of the water. Most of the time they will reappear a few moments later in a state of total panic, frantically trying to get out of the water, but other times instead of reappearing above the water, you'll instead see blood and debris cloud it, with the debris later being able to be confirmed as the vanished person. The lucky ones who have survived have explained that while they had vanished, they were transported to the vast ocean where they were actively being pursued by SCP-1128. This is all absolutely frightening and is the reason behind why any descriptions of the SCP are treated with the utmost importance, and it is highly classified information. Any videos or descriptions or imagery are meant to be destroyed immediately, and only written descriptions are allowed, but they are kept at a specific site for experiment testing and not meant for just anyone. Some of the high-level personnel who have seen these descriptions of SCP-1128 have found themselves being pulled into a glass of water, which makes it abundantly clear that no matter who or where you are, it will find you and it will do its best to complete its mission. I don't know about you guys, but I don't ever want to encounter SCP-1128. Moving on to number 4, we have SCP-1000. This is an SCP that is currently on the loose, and if anyone ever reports any sightings or contact with this SCP, MTF Zeta 1000 will always need to be sent to not only verify the claims, but also to investigate. Even if it seems unlikely or trivial, every report is considered quite serious and will be looked into. That is because this SCP can be extremely dangerous. SCP-1000 is a nocturnal creature that has quite a few human characteristics. In fact, this SCP evolved alongside the Homo sapiens species. Adults of SCP-1000 grow to be somewhere from 5 to 10 feet tall and weigh somewhere from 200 to 600 pounds. They have more primitive human features, like a more pronounced brow bone and that sort of thing, and it is said that their intelligence is comparable to that of a common chimpanzee. Like I mentioned before, this SCP evolved alongside humans, and their numbers were actually quite vast until about 10,000 years ago. This is when there was a large extinction event that wiped out most of the population except for an estimated 1 to 5%. This extinction event of course proved to be horrific, and in the end it triggered a quote pseudo-disease classified as SCP-1000-F1, but unfortunately this disease is passed on, which means that every SCP-1000 that exists now likely is infected. Here's where things get really scary. Basically, this disease is so bad that any hominid that either directly or even indirectly observes SCP-1000 that is infected has a chance that they will die instantaneously through this disease. Brain function will simply just end. The longer the contact, the more likely it is that this grim fate will be met. What the Foundation is most worried about right now is that since SCP-1000 is so closely related to humans, that it is possible that the disease could be transferred and humans could one day become carriers, which would prove to be lethal to the majority of our population. This is all to say that not only can the Foundation not even fully examine SCP-1000, but that no one should ever even try. In our number 3 spot today we have SCP-169. SCP-169 is a bit of an enigma because it is said that it cannot and will never be contained. There is no structure on Earth large or strong enough to hold SCP-169, and while the exact location of it currently is unknown, satellite images suggest that it is located in the southern Atlantic Ocean. SCP-169 is said to be a marine arthropod of massive size, and if you've ever heard the tales of the Leviathan, you might have an idea of how massive this creature really is, but think even bigger. At first it was presumed that the tales were just myths, but during investigations of supposed paranormal activity, its existence became feared. There currently aren't any other known specimens of SCP-169, and that truly is for the best because I don't even know if the world could handle another one. The creature is estimated to have a body length of somewhere from 2,000 to 8,000 kilometers, and it is thought to have existed since the pre-Cambrian era. As far as we know, this single specimen is the only one of its kind, and next to nothing is known about its lifestyle. The creature moves quite slowly at a pace of less than 1 kilometer per week, but it is currently believed that it is just adrift. In the area that is believed to be the current location of the creature, there has been regular seismic tremors detected, and this is thought to be indicative of SCP-169's breathing. These tremors cause minor shifts in the island's terrain, so it is believed that the creature is currently dormant. Right now, the location where the Foundation thinks the SCP is off limits to humans. The public excuse being used is because there is a high number of endangered bird species in the area, but that is just a coincidence, and it really is restricted because of this enormous creature. Unfortunately, this SCP is quite loud. I mean, of course it is, it's massive, and because of this there have been recordings of it released by scientists and civilians to the Foundation's dismay. The Foundation has engaged in cover-ups so as to not shock the public with news of this SCP, and now the Foundation is very wary of any and all scientific or civilian teams who try to capture the sound because they will enact protocol to stop them. In our number 2 spot today we have SCP-1440. SCP-1440 is currently uncontained and has been on the loose since its last containment breach. Since the breach, this SCP's location is completely unknown, and at the moment the Foundation really doesn't have the means to contain it, even if they did know where to find it. This SCP appears as a man of unknown ethnicity and age, and if asked about any of these types of things, it will definitely refuse to answer. The Foundation is unsure of if this is because it just doesn't know the answer, or if it is just unwilling to share any information about itself. Either way, you should definitely never be in a position where you are asking SCP-1440 about itself, because things could quickly go awry. This SCP appears to be a man in or around his 80s, but the peculiar thing with this is that there have been no signs of aging with this SCP in the 50 years since its first discovery. While this is all fine, things start to get really dicey, and this SCP shows its true colors when it comes into contact with any man-made object or with the human population, and it stays in contact for longer than a couple of days. This is because any extended exposure to humanity-made objects or people creates this adverse reaction from the SCP. It will suddenly turn and simply will not rest until it destroys that item or person. If it has any trouble, like if the person were to try and get away, the SCP will stop at nothing and will destroy anything that gets in the way until it has officially taken out its target. The only exceptions to this rule are the SCP itself and the items that belong to him, like his clothes and a small glass cup he carries. SCP-1440 in all of his terrifying glory is a self-aware SCP. He knows he has these extremely violent tendencies, so he does try to refrain from coming into contact with the human population, but despite his best efforts he will inevitably run into people and their things. SCP-1440 travels in quite an odd and complex pattern, which means that attempts to track him have been highly unsuccessful, so his current whereabouts are unknown at this time. Right now it is thought that SCP-1440 can't be destroyed, either because of the fact that, upon his initial discovery, when brought in for questioning, he went on to destroy the entire site as well as caused the deaths of a redacted amount of personnel and 6 other SCPs. Any other containment attempts have resulted in similar results. In our number 1 spot today we have SCP-682. This is an SCP that at this point in time there are no available means of destroying, despite the Foundation's desire to. If we ever find the technology that allows for the destruction of this SCP, they will most definitely go ahead with that, because SCP-682 is far too strong, way too powerful, and just too dangerous. This SCP appears as a large sort of reptilian type creature with an unknown origin, but it also has quite the hatred for all life. SCP-682 is highly intelligent and capable of complex communication, and this hatred for life coupled with its smarts is really quite a deadly combination. SCP-682 consumes as well as sheds material, which means that its size does change from time to time, of course growing larger with consumption and smaller with the shedding. Despite its size, however, it always exhibits high strength, speed, and reflexes, which makes it quite a strong opponent. It appears as though this SCP gets its energy through consuming different materials, whether organic materials or otherwise, and another frightening thing about it is that even when it is struggling or partially destroyed or has great damage, it is still exceptionally resilient. It was once observed with 87% of its body damaged, but it was still able to fight and in the end escape and regenerate. The Foundation continually tries its best to find and recapture SCP-682, but it always finds a way to escape each time, with close to 20 attempted escapes and 6 successful ones so far, but those numbers only grow each time it faces capture. When this SCP is captured, it needs to be held in a 5 by 5 by 5 meter chamber with 25 centimeter reinforced acid-resistant steel plate lining the entire inside. This is because the chamber needs to be filled with hydrochloric acid that the SCP is then submerged in, and any attempts to even move or speak or anything by the SCP needs to be responded to with full force until they find a way to destroy it once and for all.
Kicking off at number 5, SCP-2317, and I'm sure you'll all appreciate this fact, but this video is going to have a lot of jumbled numbers throughout because you know that's how catalog systems work, right? Well, let me introduce you to SCP-2317, which is the perfect way to demonstrate the levels of secrecy that the SCP Foundation operates. So much so that depending on what level of security clearance you have, the more you'll know about 2317, and the more you'll realize how absolutely screwed we'd all be if it ever got out. Essentially, SCP-2317 is a locked wooden door that leads to an alternate reality. Inside that reality is a demonic, anomalous entity that swallows planets whole, yet is supposedly locked away by 7 bones of another of its own species, binding it in a ritual that by all accounts will prevent the end of all existence. The thing is though, 6 of those bones are broken, and now there's only 1 of those bones preventing it from escaping. The Foundation goes to great lengths to fabricate a ritual which involves human sacrifice, which it tells its lower ranking staff will prevent said end of the world. Spoilers though, it doesn't, and all it does is serve as a way to mentally distract everyone from the inevitable end of all life. Whew, heavy stuff. Coming in at number 4, SCP-2399. Now, it's important to note that there's a slim chance that SCP-2399 won't be a world-ending catastrophe after all, and its intentions are to simply land on Earth and usher in a new age of technological prosperity. But really guys, would we ever want to take that risk? Because I wouldn't. In short, SCP-2399 is a massive alien continent-sized complex mechanical structure that was on course for Earth before it was caught in the gravity of Jupiter's moon of Io, causing it to become stranded on the gas giant, automatically activating its self-defense protocols, resulting in what is now known by astronomers as the Great Red Spot. Now SCP-2399 constantly dispenses fleets of small drones that slowly repair it, and as far as the latest update goes, it's nearly ready for completion. The thing is, it's encased in an indestructible force field that the Foundation currently has no way of even denting or even scanning to figure out what the hell is going on underneath there. Their latest plan was known as Protocol Legionnaire, which essentially was firing a volley of nuclear warheads enough to wipe out civilization 1,000 times over. And guess what? Not even a dent. Whatever's under there has got the Foundation spooked and in all likelihood will result in the end of the world as we know it. Hey, that's a song, right? Next up at number 3, SCP-3003. If any of you have a fear of the uncanny, then this one's for you, because if the thought of being parasitically overthrown by a sentient alien bug sends shivers down your spine, then let me introduce you to SCP-3003, otherwise known as the end of history. Essentially, 3003 is an Earth-sized planet 208 light years away from our Earth, but aside from distance, is near identical to our own. However, it possesses a population of over 30 billion and is exponentially more technologically advanced than our civilization, down to one small but significant difference. SCP-3003 is controlled by a beetle-like organism that parasitizes human life and wants to bring Earth under its influence. Because of its ability to enslave human life under its hive mind, the planet of SCP-3003 has become highly advanced and is nearly at the point of becoming an interstellar civilization, where it will arrive on Earth and infect us all with its mind-controlling amoeba-like organisms. The thing is though guys, the 30 billion humanoids already under its control are possibly the happiest people in the universe. They're healthy, they're happy, they don't partake in violent behavior and abstain from military conflict. They have a resistance to pain and diseases and are genetically engineered to be the best spacefaring species that they can be. But they also lack all semblance of free will and self-determination, so get the hell away from my brain, you damn alien bug. Swinging in at number 2, SCP-3007. Whew! This one's a doozy. And SCP-3007 is what is known in the Foundation as an info hazard, a key to class info hazard, which in other words means it's really bad. An info hazard by nature wants to be spread via knowledge and awareness, and as we all know, you can't kill an idea. Essentially, 3007 is a simultaneous dream that people have, which exhibits them walking through a strange world, not unlike our own. If they're injured in that world, they're injured in real life. If they die, they die. And there's an entity imprisoned within it that wants nothing more than to bleed out into our world to do the same. It's known as the Red. Now, there's a lot to this skip, and the canon surrounding it is very intricate, but essentially, the Red is an anomalous entity that attached itself to a highly advanced alien civilization that had reached space exploration and stumbled upon it. Over hundreds of years, it used this unfortunate civilization as its plaything, twisting and contorting them into monstrosities and warping their world for its own sadistic pleasure. And guess what? It wants to do exactly the same to our world and is slowly luring people to its awareness through the power of dreams. Currently, the only way to contain this spread is to terminate all people who become aware of the info hazard, and as far as plans concerned, there is none. Oops. And finally, at our number 1 spot, SCP-001 SDL. Alright, as far as fiction goes, SCP-001 When Day Breaks is one of the most masterful and horrifying stories told throughout the entire Foundation, and it's a testament to exactly what the SCP multiverse can produce. Now, there's no clear definition on what SCP-001 is, and instead there are over 30 different proposals which keep the whole thing ambiguous. One of those proposals is SDL, or When Day Breaks, and it gives a whole new meaning to Don't Go Into the Light. Essentially, SDL is an extinction level event where the sun has turned everyone on Earth into an amorphous goo, which still retains its sentience and essentially reduces Earth's population to malevolent flesh zombies. What is left is a bleak, inhospitable world for its survivors, people on the edge of existence roaming the wasteland, trying to stay in the shadows and avoid the roaming hordes of melted flesh zombies. What makes it worse though is that the amorphous goo has a tendency to combine into each other, meaning that a large bulk of the 7 billion people on the planet have become burbling, breathing masses of sentient, fleshy goo, and they want you to join them to step out into the light and be melted by the sun. Whew. I'd take regular zombies any day.
Coming in number 5, we've got SCP-2662. This SCP makes its way out of containment pretty regularly. Thing is, it doesn't really want to. It would be perfectly happy to stay under Foundation custody until the end time, spending most days lazing about and eating on someone else's dime. Unfortunately, that'll never be the case for this strange, stretched out humanoid. 2662 is a 4-meter tall, tentacled individual who tends to wield some sort of psychic influence over the people that spend a lot of time near it. Lots of folks seem to become attuned to its wants and needs over time and feel compelled to act in ways that will please the creature. That's just the beginning though. If it were just a vaguely eldritch being who wanted to play video games and get the daily newspaper, the Foundation would probably label it Euclid. Hell, maybe even safe. These days, that's not an option though, much to 2662's chagrin. The secondary anomalous effect is the spontaneous generation of religious followings around once a month. 2662 does not choose to make these zealots appear, they just sort of do. So once a month, out of the blue, a group of crazed religious lunatics will attempt to break 2662 out of whatever Foundation site currently houses it. The weirdos then perform all sorts of nasty, violent, and sexual rituals that usually center our cephalopod pal. One such example was a group known as Towards Him, spelled Hymn, blasting into the containment cell, cutting their hands, pleasuring themselves, and then drawing symbols on the walls with a mixture of blood and other fluids. 2662 was horrified when this was happening, but the group seemed quite pleased with themselves. This sort of thing happens often, usually with them taking 2662 out of containment when all is said and done. And no matter how many times the Foundation eliminates these groups, they come back in a different capacity with all prior knowledge of Foundation strategies intact. The poor anomaly just wants some peace and quiet. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-2006. As long as everyone follows the rules, we should be okay. Well, at least for a little bit. It really is only a matter of time until this SCP decides it's time to try something new. On a good day, SCP-2006 is an anomalous sphere that just floats around its containment cell. The one and only goal of this anomaly is to scare as many people as possible. Sounds pretty bad now, doesn't it? Add in the ability to shapeshift without any known limits, and you can probably see the impending apocalypse on the horizon. Thankfully, this being is gullible and doesn't really understand what people find scary. You can't read their reactions too well either. Most of the time, it'll try and jump out from around corners to shock new doctors and researchers. It also likes to take the form of Roman from the 50s sci-fi goof fest robot monster. It looks like a gorilla suit with a diving helmet bolted to the top. Not exactly the image of terror. Here's the thing though, the Foundation keeps 2006 on a steady diet of cheesy, unscary fiction in order to keep its curiosity sated. They bring in actors to pretend to be scared when 2006 transforms into rubber suit monsters for the 100th time. This way they can keep it satisfied, thinking that it has successfully terrified some humans. Definitely don't want it getting any bright ideas. Because the day it realizes that causing damage to the Foundation site would cause terror, it's game over. If someone brings in a movie that's a little too real life spooky, we're all doomed. Hell, if it catches on that the folks it's been scaring are simply acting, it might attempt to do something more drastic. And with unlimited shape-shifting potential, it could break free and cause problems with minimal effort. For now, it's quite friendly with folks it's already scared, and the Foundation would really like to keep it that way. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-035. In order to keep this porcelain mask contained, the Foundation keeps it in a sealed glass case no less than 10 centimeters thick. The case is then placed in a room made of steel, iron, and lead. Doors are triple locked, and at least 2 armed guards are posted outside of the metal cube at all times. Nobody's allowed in or out under any circumstances. Then, every 2 weeks, it has to be moved to a new sealed case, and the old one must be disposed of. It seems as though this should be enough to contain anything, but it still isn't enough. There are slip-ups, and 035 has made it out on multiple occasions. It's constantly dripping corrosive fluid from its eyes and mouth, which will decay pretty much anything it comes into contact with. Glass seems to last the longest without totally falling apart, thus the thick glass case. Anyone who comes within a few meters of the mask will feel compelled to put it on. Doing so fries the brain and replaces their personality with that of the mask. The host body will then decay until it is no longer functional. When possessing a body, 035's personality shines through. It claims to have been present at many momentous occasions throughout history and loves to convince people to become its servants. It uses this ability to rally support and attempt to escape Foundation custody. Multiple escape attempts have led researchers to permanently seal the mask away, but this only served to make it angry. An aura of negativity surrounds the mask now, compelling anyone who enters the space around it to attempt suicide. All of the walls surrounding 035 secrete a strange black substance too, consisting of blood and unknown contaminants. The goop is highly corrosive, like the stuff coming out of the mask, and threatens the structural integrity of any room it's kept in. With both the negativity aura and the ability to summon secretions, it's only a matter of time before the mask makes another great escape. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-096. There's no stopping this one. If someone sees an image of its face in any capacity, no matter how far away they are, 096 will track them down and kill them. The pale, lanky humanoid will cross oceans, plains, and mountains to unhinge its terrifying maw and tear folks to pieces. It's been clocked running at 35 kilometers per hour and has been known to accelerate to much faster speeds. In fact, the top recorded speed has been redacted, so we probably don't want to know how fast it can actually go. The Foundation has attempted to contain it to prevent these violent activities from continuing, but to no avail. If it's compelled to find the person who witnessed its visage, it'll make its way to them no matter what, and in the process of doing so, more people are likely to see it and become targets. The only way to prevent this from happening is to terminate it, and that has also proven to be quite difficult. The thing has withstood anti-tank rounds, taken hundreds of 50 cal rounds to every part of its body, and kept trucking. You could tear all the flesh away from its bones and it would continue killing, so yeah, this thing is gonna escape, and it'll escape again. Thankfully, it seems to become docile after eliminating everyone who's seen it. This has provided the Foundation with ample opportunity to retrieve and safely place it back in containment where no one else can witness it. One of these days, though, there's gonna be a chain reaction of witnesses, and we're all done for. And finally, at number 1, we've got SCP-2845. So go ahead and read the containment procedures for this godly deer. Just go and see how complex and ridiculous it gets. There are morality plays performed featuring 6 masked figures. People are forced to drink half liters of olive oil before breaking boulders with hammers. Children are to be roasted and eaten, and more, all on a constant 63-hour and 54-minute cycle. A lot of ritualistic nonsense has been outsourced at this point, but it must be done by the numbers all the time with no mistakes or variations. Now that the ritual has been set, it must be performed exactly so for the rest of time. If this can be kept up, 2845 will remain contained. If not, the godlike creature will escape and transmute matter to its heart's content. This will be catastrophic for everyone involved. Really, there shouldn't be any way for the Foundation to contain this powerful entity. Any cage they could build would be immediately turned into metallic hydrogen and helium, and the beast would run free as if nothing had been there in the first place. But by divining this insane ritual and performing it forever, the deer remains in one place. One slip up though, and it all falls apart. Let's see how long they can keep it up.
Coming in at number 5, we've got Dr. West. When people lose sight of humanity in the pursuit of efficiency and cost cutting, things can go bad quickly. I'm sure if you took a look at any number of famous villains, you'd find a similar storyline. Dr. West is described as recycling at its most brutal. Overseeing a waste disposal facility used by the Foundation, he exercises power in a way that ends up making things much worse for everyone. At this facility, there are 3 sites. There's Site A for long-term anomalous waste storage, Site C for incineration of non-anomalous waste, and Site B where waste is received and processed. Many reports of strange humanoid corpses appearing at Site C cropped up over time, but Dr. West insisted that these corpses were just not processed properly. They should have been classified as anomalous, he says. When these bodies appear, they're usually removed, immersed in concrete, and then stored at Site A, but that's not the whole story. See, Dr. West also found a way to save the Foundation plenty of time and money on amnestics. He supervises the distillation of happy and good memories from recently deceased DClass subjects. They literally boil the happiness and goodness from their brain and use the distillate as an amnestic of sorts. If properly processed and combined with targeted hypnotherapy, it allows for the removal of precise memories from certain subjects. After all this stuff is boiled out of a corpse, it is sent to Site C as a non-anomalous body. That's it. Nothing else should happen, or so Dr. West says. However, it seems as though this process is what causes the corpses to rise from the dead and become violent. By burning away any and all memories that make up a person's humanity, it leaves behind only misery, pain, and rage. But you can't convince Dr. West of that. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Crooked Man. While not a Foundation member himself, the Crooked Man is evasive enough to have never been contained. This means that he could be anywhere at any time, even within the Foundation itself. His efforts are largely contained within the small English community of Tembe, though. There's even a playground song that the local kids sing about him. It goes like this. There lived a crooked man who made a crooked deal. He kept a crooked cane and his catch in crooked creel. He stole a crooked child who cried a crooked squeal, and that crooked little man was broken on the wheel. Nightmarish. I feel like this is just a classic horror movie waiting to happen. So this hostile home invader sticks around Tembe and shows up every 12 years or so. His active phase lasts around 70 days during the fall and winter months. Anyone who is alone indoors after sunset may be subject to his effects. Buildings hosting his targets will undergo steady degradation of their structural integrity. They warp in all sorts of awful ways, and this warping effect extends to anything that enters said building. The deformations are immediate and severe and usually fatal. People being targeted will experience gross deformations in their body structures. Usually this takes the form of multiple compound fractures along their long bones and severely displaced vertebra. Their skin will become elastic to allow for this strange, crooked growth. This often results in them being very long or tall and very visibly gnarled. Human bodies are not meant to withstand this kind of abuse, and as such, this attention from the Crooked Man is often deadly. If we're to believe the children's song about the Crooked Man, we can only assume that he was a terrible person. He kidnapped a child, resulting in him being tortured on the wheel, likely disfiguring him. This could be the origin of the Crooked Man's crookedness. Then, after dying, he decided to take revenge on the town he was killed in by passing the crookedness on to buildings and people. My goodness, what a jerk. Coming in at number 3, we've got Harold Maine. Speaking of jerks, here's Harold Maine. This man is the embodiment of slimeball, just human garbage. See, he was involved in the discovery of SCP-2982. 2982 is a mobile phone with the ability to overwrite the attributes of contacts and then manifest these changes on their actual physical person. Things like eye color, weight, sexual orientation, religious belief, mental well-being, quality and length of life, and more can all be adjusted from this phone. Having access to this, Harold Maine could have just made himself an attractive beefcake, or maybe even given the people around him a leg up on life. But no, he had to be the absolute worst. His favorite activity is making people's lives essentially unlivable and then extorting them when they're at their lowest. Real villain behavior, right? One particularly bad instance of this was when he crashed his car into an attractive young mother that he was interested in. After exchanging information to follow up on for insurance, he changed some of her information. Maine gave this poor woman useless crab-like arms and demanded that she bring him all sorts of money before he even considered letting her return to normal. She couldn't work or drive or take adequate care of her child with these arms, but he kept demanding more. He even upped the ante when she brought him less than expected and threatened to give her daughter some terrible disease if she didn't comply. Worst of all, he insisted on letting her know that he could just alter all of her information and make her think that she wanted to do these things for him, but instead it's more fun to make her do everything against her will. To destroy her soul, in other words. He has plenty of people on the go too. At one point, he had no less than 5 people under his thumb, even going so far as to turn a man into an awful half-man, half-lobster abomination. There's no comfort for any of his victims, and hopefully no comfort for him wherever he ends up. Coming in at number 2, we've got Director Emerson. Often in the dead of night, I find myself asking the question, what happened to Site-13? It's a tough question, but Director Emerson has a pretty clear picture. Detailed largely in SCP-1730, we discover that Site-13 is from another universe. Somehow it made it into our world, which is how we have information on it now. It seems as though ethics are a little different over there in the other universe, less ethical. Elliot Emerson controlled this site, insisting that everyone test anomalies in cruel and unusual ways. Hell, it was so bad that even Bobble the Clown had something to say about it. Emerson was cruel in his handling of the site, and apparently quite short-sighted too. He refused to acknowledge the basis of what made something anomalous and assumed that incinerating everything would just cleanse them of their anomalies. So he continued to have his staff abuse and then destroy the creatures, turning them into a freaky goo. And of course, this goo itself was anomalous. Eventually, it was too much and the waste escaped, taking warped forms of anomalies that were once whole. It's even implied that Emerson really enjoyed watching the anomalies suffer before having them blasted to smithereens. In the entry, we learn of Director Emerson's mortuary protocol, in which he states that anomalies, even humanoid ones, are not human beings. He says that human beings fall into a category of non-anomalous life forms, and even if they appear to be human, they're strictly humanoid. He concludes by saying that they are not entitled to the same rights and privileges afforded to human beings by the Ethics Committee, which is some X-Men mutant discrimination stuff. To top it all off, Emerson also allowed a highly volatile machine known as the Thresher to continue operating. This device was known to have reality warping properties, which eventually did lead to a lot of the chaos at Site-13. In the end, he had the choice to stick around and get killed by the goo-based abominations, or to try to use the Thresher to jump into another reality. And guess what he did, the coward. And finally, at number 1, we've got Dr. Robert Montauk, a true classic. There's much debate as to whether he's a hero or a villain, but I would say that the debate makes things a little clearer. He is the doctor presiding over the containment of the Scarlet King, and let's just say he employs some less than savory tactics to keep it out of our world. Somehow he developed a way to make it functionally self-containing, as long as nobody messes with it or even really acknowledges it. This method is a ritual so terrible that it cannot be described, and this ritual must be carried out every 24 hours. It's so bad that the staff have to regularly be rotated out for psychological counseling. It's so rough that as soon as anyone tries to help a little girl, they are terminated. It's so nasty that medical professionals on staff are required to have not taken the Hippocratic Oath. The O5 Council put out a statement in response to the lowered morale this procedure caused. Yes, Procedure 110 Montauk is as horrible as you've heard, which is why only D-Class personnel are authorized to carry it out. Yes, it does involve brutal redacted. No, putting the poor girl out of her misery is not an option. Neither is drugging her. She has to be aware of what's going on for 110 Montauk to work. One final note, the Foundation does many distasteful things in the completion of our mission, but our mission is important enough that the price is one we must pay. See, I'm picking a few selected phrases out of the message, but you get the idea. It's bad news.